Okay, cool. Next up, we've got someone that's been here before as well, and he's going to read a little extract from a novel that he's written. So please give it up for Mr. Martin Ware.
My first novel, called Not Exactly Shangri-La, was published about 5 years ago in India. It's a story set in an imaginary Himalayan Buddhist state called Kalapur, which is ruled over by a bunch of authoritarian lamas who seized power about 50 years before. In an effort to bolster their dubious legitimacy, they invite 2 foreign experts to assist them in compiling an official history in which the country's recent past would be totally rewritten. One of the experts is Huma Hassan, a feisty young Muslim woman from India who's an expert in conservation of manuscripts. Now, in the short passage I'm going to read, Huma has already discovered the true nature of the government's plans to rewrite history, when she's suddenly invited to an official reception by the Minister of Cultural Affairs. She hardly knows anyone there, and as a young Indian feminist, feels distinctly out of place, until she suddenly encounters an extraordinary woman. The large reception area was already occupied by the usual crowd who attended these functions. Indian diplomats in smart creamy jackets, their wives immaculately turned out in fashionable silk saris, small clusters of Kalapuri women in their long, harmonious ghira skirts, chatting amicably together, in marked contrast to their sober-suited husbands, most of whom either stood around awkwardly by themselves or gathered to pay court to one or other of the lamas who consented to grace the occasion. Though several faces were familiar to Huma, there was nobody whom she knew well. Kirang Kane Re, where do you come from? Asked a plump, grandmotherly figure, hovering before her in a cloud of smoke like a benevolent genie. India, Huma replied, aware that with her inadequate grasp of Tibetan, she could hardly hope to sustain her Kalapuri disguise. My dear, cried the old lady joyfully, and at once breaking into English, I'm so happy to meet you. You're the first Indian girl I've ever seen who deigns to wear our national dress. Huma now began to take in the human aspects of the apparition, the broadly smiling Mongolian features, the layers of diaphanous silk garments that enveloped her figure like a balloon, the small, capable hand clutching firmly at a smoking cheroot. Please don't misunderstand me, the old lady went on. I love Indian people, and India's my second home. But the women who come here do tend to be a rather conservative lot. She gestured eloquently towards a nearby group of matrons in saris. You don't have to apologize, said Huma. I know exactly what you mean. For a moment, the old lady's attention seemed to wander, till Huma realized that she was actually in the process of attracting the attention of a waiter carrying drinks. I'm going to have a large whiskey, she announced. Will you have the same, my dear? Huma agreed. After all, she found herself saying, tonight I'm supposed to be an emancipated woman of Kalapur, not a Muslim girl from India. Bravo, said the balloon lady, taking another puff at her cheroot. But I'm sorry to tell you that the women here are not as free as you may have imagined. For instance, if you go out to any of the villages near here, they will tell you, I mean women as well as men, they will tell you that it takes a woman 9 lives before she can be born as a man. And to tell the truth, she came closer to Huma, as long as we are ruled by this bunch of India-backed celibate lamas, nothing much is going to be done for women. It's really such a waste. She turned towards a cluster of Kalapuri women. After all, we're so much more balanced than men are. Homer found the old lady so warm and convivial that she had no hesitation about sharing her own personal feelings. The trouble with me is, she said, that although I have no sympathy with our male oppressors, I have an almost equal lack of sympathy for the women who just sit down and accept that oppression as a fact of nature or a matter of faith, or worse still, actively collude in it. That's no good in this part of the world, the older woman countered. That way you will end up by having to fight both sexes. She puffed reflectively at her cheroot. Of course, there are other possible solutions to your dilemma. Of course, you could try to sidestep it by living in the West, the alleged happy home of emancipated women. Or you could try to transcend it by following our Buddhist Dharma, the way of meditation and religion. But I can tell you that both these paths are full of risks. If you go to the West, you may suffer rejection and disillusionment. And if you stay here and meditate, you may get nowhere fast, simply because, as our teachers tell us, you're starting out on your journey without compassion. She began to laugh again. In any case, I'm afraid the lamas here are not what they used to be. Any moment now, I expect they will declare that in future Lord Maitreya's heaven is only open to them and their born-again male cronies. You must tell me who you are, said Homer. I've never met anyone like you here. You can call me Dechi Dechi if you like. You are really a princess then? I might have guessed. Not exactly, said the old lady. But since I'm somehow descended from the old Buddhist kings of Kalapur, people here like to call me that. It's all rather exaggerated, really, but it comes in quite useful at times. You see, I'm almost the only person left in Kalapur who can tell the bastards who rule us what I think of them and their policies. At this point, Princess Dechi began to look over Homer's shoulder. My dear, she said, I can see a young man there who has been trying to catch your eye for the past 5 minutes. So I'd better stop monopolizing you and go and pay my customary respects to that demon minister. So, goodbye, Homer. It is Homer, isn't it? And if you ever need my help, here's my card, or you can ask the abbot where to find me. Homer watched as the small balloon-like figure bobbed and puffed its way through the encircling crowds, past the lines of saris and in between the tiras, until beyond the ancient lamas in their maroon robes, she disappeared from view. Homer finished her whiskey now, feeling rather self-conscious. Had the princess really been there talking to her? Or was she the product of her own imagination, perhaps even her wish fulfillment? In this country, she thought, you could never be quite sure.